Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson head into their first season together, with obviously Ben coming over from the Lions this offseason. Speaking at the Fanatics Fest yesterday, Caleb was up there with Peyton and Eli. He discussed how his relationship with his new head coach has grown this offseason.
It's been awesome. Ben Johnson, he uses some choice words every day towards me, but he's tough, and I love him. He's awesome. It's been great being around him. We hang out in his office, and we just, we have lunch sometimes, things like that. We're just, building this bond and relationship to be able to, last a while.
I think it's interesting because you and I have talked about this privately and on our podcast, is that offensive coaches in this league are better with O-lines. If you look at the highest rated O-lines the last 7, 8 years, most are offensive coaches. If you look at some of the worst O-lines, it's often, New York Giants excluded, defensive coaches. McVay, Andy Reid, they can fix offensive lines quickly. The Steelers have been trying to rework theirs for years. The first thing Ben Johnson did is fix the interior O-line. And I thought, regardless of what happens this year, and regardless if Caleb Williams is good enough, Ben came from Detroit and went, Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, the Rams guard. He's like, I got to protect this guy's feet. And so, as somebody, you were a scout in this league, I don't know if Caleb Williams will be a star, but that initial move in free agency by Ben Johnson told me he's got, because that's what McVay did in L.A. with Goff. Left tackle, fix the interior O-line. So I actually have a lot of confidence in a team that I shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, this was a head coach. How often do we see now guys that get at these opportunities not jump immediately? We just saw it, Liam Cohen. Ben Johnson was kind of the opposite of that. He waited. Remember, he kind of hung up the phone as Washington was flying to him. Turns out that was a pretty good job. I think the key for a lot of these young offensive coaches, remember when McVay got to the Rams, Kyle got to the Niners, run the ball. Even LaFleur, when he got to the Packers, they started, Aaron, you're not just going to carry us on your back. Caleb's been used to that. That's how he played it with USC. It's not going to work in the NFL that way. So I think they got to get him under control. The roster's pretty good. The problem, though, Colin, division, the schedule, it's not easy. So right. Good luck to these two.
Yeah, I mean, I said this last year. Minnesota ended up having a great year, but I said if Minnesota finished in fourth place, it would be the most dynamic fourth place team you'll ever see. I kind of feel like Chicago doesn't have Detroit's roster. They don't. They don't have the continuity and the momentum of Green Bay. And do they have the coach of Minnesota? So I don't know. I feel like if I said to you today, 10-7, would you take that?
Yes.
You would take it.
If you were a Bears fan or Ben Johnson or Caleb, Colin, this is the hard part about this job. Dallas, we understand why it's a tough job, but they have won a lot since winning the Super Bowls. They just haven't won that often in the playoffs, but they've been in the playoffs a lot. This Bears team, beside the Urlacher run now for about 15, has been not very good. And obviously, Aaron Rodgers, Minnesota has had a lot of good teams over that time. Now Detroit, I would say Detroit healthy, second best roster in the NFC behind Philadelphia. So it's difficult. And the pressure, I mean, you're there a lot now, that market, it's a football town. The expectations and the results don't exactly match up. So it's a tough job for these two.
Yeah, listen, 10-7 would be huge for them. I mean, look at what Harbaugh was able to do with the Chargers in year one with Herbert. And that's with an established head coach. Obviously, I know that he had been out of the NFL, but the NFL wasn't new to him, and being a head coach certainly wasn't new to him. And Herbert had been in the league for a handful of years now. So, and you could see and that was one of the worst teams in the NFL the year prior. And so these things take time. Even if they just win 9 games or something, I think that would still be really positive. Now, Colin said, I have faith in this team even though I shouldn't. And I disagree with that. I think they're giving you all the reasons to have faith and believe in them. And I'm super high on the Chicago Bears, but not from the point where I'm like, they're going to rip off 13, 14 wins and they're a dark horse to get to the NFC Championship game or a Super Bowl or whatever. It's just like, I look at this team now as they're functional now. they're functional. They're going to continue to grow and evolve and get better year after year after year. And now they have a coach who needs to grow and evolve and settle into the head coaching role. And same thing with Caleb Williams. He needs to settle being a quarterback, in the NFL. And we can use they kind of referenced the Commander's job before. And it's like, well, Dan Quinn was an established head coach. He had been a head coach before. He head coached himself to a Super Bowl. So he'd been around the block. So this is all a process. It's all a process. It all takes time. It's all steps that you have to take. And for me, I have very high hopes for the Bears this season and Caleb, but I look at it more from the perspective of, do they just get better? Do I leave this next season with a feeling of, this is a team that actually knows how to function. This is actually a team that is now well run. That is what I love for the Chargers. And I rip Nick Wright for trying to create this false scenario where it's like, Justin Herbert better win. There's no excuses now. He's got the coach and this or that. He better win the playoffs. And it's like, what are you talking about? This team is still a work in progress. This team was an absolute disaster the years prior. Okay, there was a reason why they were drafting 4th, 5th overall, whatever it was. They were awful. And in 1 year, Harbaugh immediately flipped this team around and made it actually a legitimate team. And you're now going to make up the pressure of, well, they better win playoff games because there's no excuses now. And it's like, that's insane. That doesn't make any sense. It's absurd. Now this year for sure, right? This year and the next year, these next 2 years, it's like no excuses. You better start winning, win some playoff games, compete for divisions, etc., etc. But not year one. That's insanity. It takes a minute. It takes a minute. And that's how I feel about the Bears. When people kind of say there's no excuses for Caleb now, they gave him everything he needs. And they're like, yeah, they did. And so, right, there's no excuses for him to just be completely lost and be terrible and to not show us good enough. I don't even want to use glimpses, but because that's too short, but good enough moments where we feel good about him as a quarterback, right? You can't have there should be no excuse for you to have a year where you're like, I don't know, man, this guy just looked really lost and uncomfortable and this, that, you can't have that. But at the same time, it's he needs to prove that he's a generational talent in year 2 with a first-year head coach. He needs to prove that he's going to be one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to live. Right now, he has to prove that right now in 2025. And the Bears better prove that everything has changed now. Everything has changed now. That they are now to be the ones that are chased. If Ben Johnson's a really great coach and if Caleb Williams is a really great quarterback, then heck, they're going to win the division, they're going to win the NFC, and they're going to compete for a Super Bowl. No excuses. And it's like, well, that's not true either. So it's always a balanced conversation here. And it's funny because I already know when I make a comment like that, I always have Chicago Bears fans, not Chicago Bears fans, but people who don't like the Chicago Bears, whatever. Or rather, they don't like the Bears, they don't like Caleb. They're like, already making excuses. Already hear the excuses. And it's just like, what are we saying? Caleb has to be a Super Bowl MVP this coming season? That's proof then of everything? That's not how this works. Especially when last year was such an insane mess. An absolute mess. Justin Herbert and the Chargers are honestly a great reference point. Not exactly because Herbert was an actual he didn't need to learn how to play quarterback in the NFL. And Harbaugh was an established coach. But that year was a wild success. A wild success. For the first time in a long time, you felt the Chargers and Herbert were actually well run. That they weren't going to be outcoached. That they could win tough games. That they were moving in the right direction. And the playoff game got away from them, understandably so. They had a lot of young guys in key positions, and the defense was able to attack them. And they lost. Not a failure. Do I think that they could have won that game and gone further? Absolutely. But I don't look at that season as that. I can't believe it. Now Herbert's 0 for 2 in the playoffs. It's like that doesn't mean anything to me right now. In 2025, 2026, I'm locked in, and I'm going to really evaluate that very intensely to see where things go right and go wrong. Year 1, there's a lot of grace there. And that's what this Bears team deserves. It's to even question whether them winning 10 games, would that be a success? It's like, of course it would be. You know, unless they're only winning like these dumb, easy games or where, you know, someone's injured or whatever, and then they get blown, you know, they get absolutely annihilated. Like and I don't remember all the key games that they have right now, but like any of like the big key games that they just get, you know, completely blown out of the water. Then you're like, oh, all right, that 10-7 might be a little misleading, but yeah, it's okay to not have to figure out everything right away. We are so obsessed with reaching conclusions, and we're so obsessed that we need to have takes. It's funny. Someone tried to call me out before where they were just like, you know, if I have a take like this, and they were like, you know, like, what are you even saying? You're not like really forming an opinion. And it's like, first off, I am. Like, this to me is a very defined, clear opinion. But it's actually so easy. It's so much easier to just give a yes or no answer than anything else. It's actually so much easier. It's funny because in sports media, people, if you don't give a yes or no answer, people will see it as a cop-out. And it's like, it's so much harder to explore all the different possibilities than just give a define. I mean, I could just start a video and say, the Chicago Bears must win with Caleb Williams. There's no excuses. He has Ben Johnson. He has the O-line. If he doesn't win, there's a problem. There's no more excuses. That's the easiest take to have. That's the easiest take to have. And if he fails, he's clearly not good enough. The Bears really need to make, you know, they really need to figure out what they're going to do here. I think they should draft a quarterback next year, you know, next draft. Like, it's so easy to come up with those takes. It's so easy. And then if I make that statement and say, they got to move on from Caleb, this is ridiculous. He's clearly not the guy. But then in year 3 or year 4, Caleb starts balling. Everyone comes running to me and says, you're such a clown. Remember when you said they should move on from Caleb? So either way, it's a victory for me. Either way. And I'm going to talk about that in a different video, not about Caleb, but just about sports takes in general. So it's so funny. Just when you have just a clearly, you know, yes or no answer, it's actually the easiest thing ever. It really is. And there's no losing. I mean, Colin still gets energy towards him for his take about, what is it? Ben Simmons, you know, and that whole thing, saying, we don't need you anymore. That still brings attention to Colin to this day. So it ended up being a great take, because at the moment it was like, oh my God, I can't believe he's saying that. And when it ended up being wrong, it was like, whatever. People still talking about it. People still sharing that clip. People still bringing that energy. So it's just like, it's interesting to me that people struggle sometimes with accepting, like, it's okay to be like, yeah, let's just feel out year 2. See how it unfolds. People just are like, no, I need a yes or no answer I need a yes or no answer about Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears on June 23rd. Right now, I need it. And it's just like, bro, it's just, he's been with Ben Johnson for like, what, a month or so? Like, if that, in terms of like actual on-field, like some practices, like, let's just chill, man. It's like, it's going to be okay. Like, it's going to be okay. But I find it fascinating that people give so much pushback on that. So much pushback on that. And I don't know where they're coming from. I really don't. I haven't been able to like pinpoint it to be like, oh, well, it's clearly Detroit Lions fans. Or like, well, it's Vikings fans, Packers fans. Like, I haven't been able to pinpoint it, honestly. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Caleb and Ben Johnson? And, you know, what would be a successful season for the Bears and Caleb and Ben, you know? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.